that. I think I'll stand over here. I'm gonna move around a little bit. But hi, my name is Martha Bird, and I'm so happy to be here. I'm from Minneapolis, and so I've made this drive a couple of times, and it's such a beautiful drive and such a wonderful reason to come up here, come over that hill and see Duluth. It's just, it does the heart good to do that. I want to read something that's required by my grant. I'd like to acknowledge where the funds have come from that have enabled me to do this exhibit for you, and it's from the Minnesota State Arts Board. And it says, Martha Bird is a fiscal year 2025 recipient of a Creative Individuals Grant from the Minnesota State Arts Board. This activity is made possible by the voters of Minnesota through a grant from the Minnesota State Arts Board, thanks to a legislative appropriation from the Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund. So we are so lucky in the state of Minnesota to have very generous arts funding. Let me do that to somebody, if they can just hold on to it for me. Thank you. So, a couple people have asked me questions, and I've kind of put them off and said, I'm doing an artist talk, so after this, you can ask me whatever question you want. This talk tonight is going to be 10 to 20 minutes to kind of let you know what's here in the space, so you know what you're looking at. I'm open to questions at the end about that, and then on October 3rd, I'm doing a deeper dive. We're going to do about an hour-long presentation about this work, about my art practice. That talk is titled, let me see if I can remember it, Ancestry, Disability, and Mental Health, Connecting something to Martha's Sculptural Basketry, something like that. But those are all topics I'll delve more deeply in at that talk. And then on October 4th, on Saturday, I'm teaching a class at the Duluth Library. And it's a Bridget's Cross. If you wanted to learn one of these methods, it might be a 5-day, all-day class. So it's not possible to just do a short class in basketry. So what we'll be doing at that class, you'll see an example of it in this piece. It's this willow for, equal, kind of like the Red Cross symbol. And that is, you need to register with the library to be in that class. So those are the upcoming events, and then I'll be here on October 9th again for your restoration event, which I'm looking forward to. So I started in doing basketry, in functional basketry techniques, and I was working as a nurse, and I injured my back, and I was put on bed rest, and I followed those doctor's orders diligently for 2 years, and I didn't get any better. And so at the end of 2 years, I said, I have to do something different. And I just happened to sign up for a basketry class. And it basically rehabbed me. It got me moving and walking again and interacting with people. So basketry is very close to my heart. I basically say it saved my life. And I did functional basketry until 2016. And then I thought, I have something to say. And in the regular basketry, I was just doing what other people had done forever, since to the beginning of time. And then I felt I wanted to be able to express some of what's inside me. So I made that intellectual decision in 2016 to be an artist, and then I had no idea what to do. So in 2018, I did a Women's Art Institute class at St. Kate's. It was a month-long intensive. And that's where I started being able to have more conversations about what is art, what makes it art, how do I express things, and I began experimenting. And one of the first pieces I did was this piece here, and it's called Said, Unsaid. And this was, I've heard people say that it takes courage to create art, and I've thought for a long time, I don't understand that comment. I did once I got to this piece, because I started, and what I like to do is start with a very complex weave. Don't give me something easy, I don't want to do it. I want to really take some time to try to figure it out and puzzle things together and see what I can do with it. So this one, the base of that weave is a hex weave, which to me felt kind of like a jigsaw puzzle, which was really fun. And so I was doing the hex weave, and then I wanted to do something sculptural, so I just What I do is I listen internally and I use a lens of what would bring me pleasure. That's how I decide what direction I'm going to move in. I have my master's, I'm an RN, and I have my master's in holistic health, and I'm a board certified holistic RN, that's a mouthful. And my position paper at the end of the course was titled Pleasure, Passion, and Play, a pleasure-based wellness model. And so I use that as my lens, and I really like the hex weave, and so then I started playing with it, and then it went into a shape that reminded me of something that was traumatic for me. Reminded me of something, and I just pushed it away and I said, no, I'm not doing this. I don't like what I see. And I literally, for 3 weeks, left it in the basement. And every day I made a point to go peek at it, to be like, how bad is it? How bad does it make me feel? How bad is it? And after doing that for 3 weeks, I came to a turning point where I had to decide, am I going to allow what is in my life to come through and to work things through and work with that creative spark with also the thoughts that come along with it and the feelings? And I did say yes. And so this piece came out of that, and I love it now, so that's the story of that piece. And now, one of the things I learned in the Women's Art Institute was this idea of having an art practice. And that's kind of the thing, what's an art practice? And one of the things is she said, you have to show up. You have to show up regularly. You can't just sit and think about it. You have to get into a space to do your art. And so it took until a year and a half ago where I got my own studio. And now I have my own studio, and I show up 2 days a week, minimum, and I'm in there doing anything from putzing to organizing to creating to thinking to feeling scared to wondering what am I doing. But I show up every week, twice a week, and that's how I create my work. My artwork comes through my life. Let me reverse that. My life comes through my artwork. And I'm going to give you a couple examples of that. I had made, again, an intellectual decision. I'm going to work with willow. I decided I wanted to work with a natural fiber, one that I could not pay for and would keep my prices down a little bit. And so I made that decision, and I didn't have any willow. I didn't know where to get willow. I planned a trip to go to Ireland to study how to work with willow. And I did an artist residency down in the Red Wing area, and after the and I said nothing about willow. I just talked about, where I started and stuff, and the history of basketry. And someone came up to me afterwards and they said, we have an established basketry willow garden down here that nobody's using. Would you like it?
Oh, God.
And I was like, yes, I would. And it takes 5 years to establish a basketry willow garden. So I go down every winter and I take volunteers with me and we harvest my material. And that's this example of you put your intention, I put my intention in the world, say it to myself, say it out loud, and there it is. I wanted to talk about this piece too. This one is called Nebula. It's this big one. And I went to Ireland to learn how to work with willow. And I worked with 4 different master basket makers there. And when I get there, they'd say, what do you want to learn? And so I got to this one man's house, and he said, what do you want to learn? And he had this big spiral on the wall. And I said, that's what I want to learn. And he said, now, somebody help me here, if anybody knows. So in Ireland, they don't, the F word, but they don't say our F word, the swear word. It's a different one. I want to say friggin', or I don't know what it is, but he said that word, and he said, I'll just say friggin' in case that's it. He said, no friggin' way. And I said, well, that's what I want to learn. That's what I want to learn. He said, no friggin' way. And I said, why? And he said, because it is so hard. And I did one, and I will never, ever do another one again. And so I wanted to learn, and I found out there was a woman in Denmark that was teaching it, so I contacted her, and we couldn't get our schedules to match, and she said she had a book. So I got a book, And anybody who's done basketry knows a book is not the best way to learn.
Oh my God.
It's meant to be done side by side, with someone who has experience that can advise you. But all I had was a book, so I went away to Fergus Falls on residency, locked myself away for 3 weeks, and said I gotta figure it out. And so I decided to inventory everything I was using in case I wanted to do it again. This one's made out of rattan. So as I was creating this, I was keeping track of how many I made, and it took 206 pieces to make that. You start at the center and you keep adding out. Well, later I was taking a nursing class, it was online, and you could either do an essay or post a photo and write a few sentences for the test. So of course I'm gonna post a photo and put a couple sentences. So I posted that one and I said it took 206 pieces, da 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 da. And this is how it matches the thing we're talking about. And one of the nurses wrote back to me and she said, "Did you do that on purpose?" And I said, "What? Does anybody know here that 206 number of bones in your body?" And I did not do that on purpose. And I'm a nurse, and I was like, "Oh my gosh!" Of course I know that. I even get the chills saying it. So that was the first paragord spiral technique that I did, and it was this feeling of like, okay, you're on the right track. You're doing the right thing. So that, you'll see the repeat image here. Generally what I like to do is take a functional basketry class and learn a technique, and then play with it, push it, stretch it, see what I can do with it. I didn't have that choice with the paragord because I was learning from a book and I couldn't figure it out exactly. So I was doing the sculptural with that technique, and I couldn't find any classes around the world where I could find it. And it's a French weave. And so just 2 months ago, I got an email that there was someone in the south of France that was teaching it. So I just emailed right off and I said, "Sign me up, I'm there." Within 24 hours, the class filled, but I got in. And so I went there and I learned the functional basket, which I don't have here. I could bring it on October 3rd. And then the other, I think what I'll end on is the DNA piece. So this exhibit is called Weaving Ancestry. Ancestry weaving, what is it? Sounds good. Thank you. Weaving Ancestry. And I really wanted to include that because I was raised knowing I was Norwegian and English. People would come and I tell them about this weave from France and they'd say, "Are you French?" And I'm like, "No." Okay. And then during this grant cycle, when I got this grant to do the work, I wanted to do the Swedish basket, which is the far one in the back that looks different than all the others. That's called the Knutkorg. Probably not pronouncing it correctly. And I wanted to do the Swedish basket, but I'm Norwegian, so we fashioned the grant wording to be that I'm doing the Norwegian, which is a little different name. I'm going to do the Norwegian version of this so that it's in line culturally, right? So I'm in the process of doing this grant, and I happened to take my DNA test. My sister had done it. I took my DNA test. I am primarily French. Second, almost as big, Swedish. Yeah. And I'm like, oh my God. I thought I was Norwegian. Grandma taught me Norwegian. She gave me her Norwegian dishes. I've been to Norway. I lived there for a while. So it was just really funny. And so this became the Weaving Ancestry that I am actually, and it's again another example of how my art and my life come together. That here I am French and Swedish, and here I am doing French and Swedish weaves, unbeknownst to me. So, well, on the October 3rd day, you're going to hear more in depth about a lot of these topics: disability, mental health, rehab, how basketry came, how it's been used over the centuries, some of the history of it, what my apprenticeship was like. It was a 7-month apprenticeship with Fred Luce, who's a wonderful master woodworker, maker of these baskets. He had gone to Sweden and studied with an 86-year-old master in Sweden, learned how to make it, came back here, and now is teaching. He teaches at the North House Folk School, which I think you have catalogs up there. But I had the great fortune to work with him for 7 months, and I finished it last week. And he said to me at the beginning of our apprenticeship, I said to him, "Are you sure I'm going to finish this by August? Because it has a lot of skills in it that I didn't know. I'm not a woodworker. I didn't know how to use knives. I didn't know how to carve. Do you think I'll finish it in time?" And he said, "Martha, if you don't finish it, there's something wrong with you. So like 2 weeks ago and it wasn't done yet, I'm like, but I did finish it. So anyway, I am happy to answer any questions. What would people like to know? What more would you like to know tonight? You came out on a Friday night to hear this, so what else can I answer for you?
I have a question. So this piece has sort of a raw edge, but many of your other pieces have a more finished edge. When you're finishing, are you cutting the pieces sort of in line with the flow and the angle of the rest of the piece? I assume you didn't measure them perfectly and had them this small when you were making them.
And are you referring to a specific piece, like you're looking at?
These ones in the middle, yeah.
Okay, yeah, so this material is rattan, which is different than this material, which is willow. So that's one reason for the different look. And I don't use any finish. Those are the different varieties of willow that provide that color, so there's no other finishing I do to it. You'll see I have the willow examples against the wall up there, and those are my varieties. That's one bundle of each variety. You can look at the tag and it'll say what kind it is. I have, my studio, the back corner of it is full of this beautiful willow. And then I do pay very close attention to how I cut the ends, the angle. You'll notice some of them you can see the cut, but I do a nice angle on the end. On these small spiral ones over here, I think some are facing forward and some are facing in where you can see the cut more. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
Yes.
Are the willow bundles those from the garden at Hastings?
They are down in Red Wing, yeah.
Oh,
It's a 30 by 30 garden, 6 different varieties. And then I'm a meticulous documenter. I have my business card over there, and if you look at my website, you can see all kinds of photos of baskets in process and different medium and stuff like that. And so it's a 30 by 30 foot garden, and I label all the willows so I know what varieties that I'm working with.
I took a basket making class a long time ago. Do all of your different materials have to be wet when you're working with them?
Good question. Do they have to be wet? Yes, they do. And it reminds me of a story. I ran into a woman that did an installation it was an outdoor installation. It was big and it was out of rattan, this material or this material here. And when I was talking to her about it, she said, it's really hard. It cracks really easy. And I said, what do you mean it cracks really easy? She said, well, it's so dry. And I said, didn't you soak it? And she said, no. And I said, oh, honey. Oh, no. And so, if you don't know, if you're learning from a book and maybe they didn't say it because they think you're going to know. So, yes, it does have to be soaked. These can soak in a few minutes. Willow, on the other hand, depending on how tall it is, it's a foot. It's a day per foot. So I'm soaking those I have a 12-foot tank. If you ever get a chance to come down to the cities to come to my studio, you can see the 12-foot tank. You can see all the willow in my studio. I'm going to be open for the St. Paul Art Crawl, which is October 10th and 11th. And so it's really something to see. And so I soak it for 2 weeks about, and then I wrap it for a day, and then I have just a week to weave with it before it dries up.
Wow.
And so then I'm working, diligently.
Mm-hmm.
Where is your studio?
My studio is on Harriet Island in St. Paul, and it's a big old red brick building. The address, I have my business cards over here. There's different images of my art on there. You're welcome to take as many as you'd like. I have more, I can bring more. And it has my address on there. And I also have a newsletter, an artist update newsletter that I usually send out about every 2 months or every 3 months, and it'll say all the activities I'm doing, like when I have open studio and all that. You can go to my website on the main page, you can sign up. And then the other thing I just wanted to highlight that I have over there, I have a little notebook, and I have a sign that says comments appreciated. And it really means a lot to me if people have seen my work, if they would make a comment about what they felt about it, what their feelings were, what they thought about anything. It's just really edifying as an artist to go back later to be able to hear what people have thought about the work. Yes.
Martha, I want to point back to the willow, maybe because I'm sitting next to it. And there was one time I went to search for willow around here. And there is willow, certainly, but the garden that you now work with down in Red Wing, do you also tend it? And could you tell us a little bit about the soil in which the willow grows?
Yeah, that's a really good question. It was a forester that planted it with an artist, and so they did all the hard work, and they tended it for 5 years. And so you need to do that for 5 years before it's healthy and strong enough to be used in basketry. It's different than wild willow because the basketry willow has been cultivated to be long and straight, hopefully not as many branches, so that you can weave with it. Now though, all I do is go down there and cut it once a year. I don't weed it, I don't do anything. It's just, it grows and I cut it and I get this beautiful material and it grows again. We do have a fencing around it, otherwise the deer will eat it. And then everywhere the deer bites, it divides and branches.
Good.
Do you have a picture of
I
it?
do.
That'd be really cool to see.
I should bring it. Are you gonna be here October 3rd?
Try.
Because I could bring it. I have a nice big picture of me in front of the willow garden.
Oh, that'd
It's
be
actually
nice.
a really beautiful picture. I have one on my phone that I could show you that's not as impressive, but yes, I do have a picture of it.
Cool.
I also took a workshop with basketry once, and it was dogwood. Have you ever worked with dogwood?
Dogwood, yes. Another name for dogwood, the Native American communities will call it red willow, and that's what they get their tobacco from, is the inner bark of the,
Kinnikinnick.
yep, Kinnikinnick is the name. So,
Dogwood.
I have not used dogwood. I had a dogwood bush at my home, but it was way too branchy. I couldn't use it.
It's really pretty.
And it's red, right? It's beautiful.
You have to peel it. It's, this I know from a dear friend, Jim Northrop, the famous art writer. He took me to bushes of kinnikinnick, and he peeled the green, and underneath is a layer of red fiber or something, and that's what you smoke, is the red.
Yes. Yes, thank you. I'll just throw in there that I have a sweetgrass garden in my home, and I have an indigenous elder that comes every summer, and we harvest it together and braid it, and that's a really wonderful experience. And then he gives half away as medicine, and I give half away as gifts, and it's a fun practice. Yeah.
Do you have to watch for like the humidity levels in places where your art is going up? Is that something that you're cognizant of? Because I would assume that this really kind of changes or is impacted by that to some degree.
It's a really good question because a lot of artists pay attention to the environment that their art is in. I do not, because willow likes water, likes moisture, so I never have to worry about it. I remember going to a show where there was a lot of us that were in the show, and I can't remember what the material was that the one person used. I don't think it was encaustic, but it started dripping because of it wasn't a climate controlled environment. So fortunately, I don't have to worry about that. Yes.
Do you incorporate the sweetgrass into any of your pieces?
Do I incorporate the sweetgrass? I have not yet. I've done sweetgrass coiling basket. That's traditionally, I learned it at the North House Folk School, you know, how to do the round coil, which I like because it's kind of a spiral in there, very meditative and stuff. And I've been thinking, you know, I've thought about, it would make sense if I did, but I also had a mentor, she started the Fiber Arts program at the University of Hawaii. And one of the things she talked about with me, I think particularly looking at this piece, is she said, and remember I didn't go to art school, so I didn't have any of this education, so it's really valuable when somebody shares some of these insights. And she said, you don't want to just throw things in to a piece, just because you know a technique or just because you have this material, you don't want to throw it in. You want to be able to integrate it into the piece. And so I haven't figured out how to integrate the sweetgrass into it, but it is on my mind. Yeah, it is on my mind. And I will say that since I went to France and learned within 30 minutes of the class, and it was in French, and I don't speak French, but within 30 minutes of the class, I already learned something new that was going to make it easier for me once I got back to my studio, so it was well worth the money. But what I've been doing lately now is kind of deconstructing the spiral and opening it up. We didn't bring any of those pieces because we felt it was too fragile for the transportation. I'm still working with that, but it's pretty exciting to me what's happening in the studio. Yes?
So you talked a little bit about your heritage and some of the different heritage of the pieces and where they kind of come from. Is there any other things that you're interested in exploring that you're like, oh, I really want to do that, but I just haven't had the time yet?
That's a really good question. I kind of do everything I want to do, and so I just finished taking a willow bark class this week, which means I can now peel the willow, and then this Swedish knot basket, I learned how to carve the willow and slice the willow. I'm pretty in love with willow. I do love birch bark too. I don't work with birch bark. It's there's only so much time in life, and I don't have access to birch bark. So I would like to take a birch bark class. I've never taken a full one. I would like to take that. Really, it's about getting into the studio to let me start experimenting with what I've already learned. I keep saying I'm done with classes, and then something will come up that I'm interested in. Anything else? Yes.
Tell me about the functional French basket on the spiral theme.
Yes, yes, I'll have to bring it in October to show you. So, it's like this, it's about this big, and it's oblong. And then the way they carry it, they have a little bit of a low handle, and they put their hand in and grab the far side of it and rest it against their hip. And then when they go shopping,
It's a market basket.
yeah, so then when they go shopping, they put things in there. That's how he told us what they did with it.
Can you do spirals left-handed and right-handed?
Oh, there's a try. The most exciting thing I've done is this one. And this one, it was all right-handed, but what I did was I changed the position of my hands. And as I, like my wrists and my hands, and just by changing that position, by surprise, I ended up with a vessel inside the spiral, which I was really excited about. Being a basket maker to start with, to find that there was a basket inside the spiral, that was pretty exciting. Not done the left-handed yet, though. You'll see on my website, on the main page at the bottom, there's a video. It's a 2-minute video. You'll see my willow garden in there. You'll see me weaving the spiral, and I just talk a little bit about it. And I have to say that you guys are a great audience. The level of looking that I've seen people do with the artwork is just so gratifying to see people, lean over and look in and look around. I mean, you guys have got to be the best audience for me. All right. Really.
We're real basket cases.
Ouch.
Yes.
Speaking of looking in, can you say what's inside the copperish looking weaving one?
Yes, thank you for asking that and talking about copper and talking about inside. Both of those things are good things to touch on. So my family, which I'll talk more about in October, has deep roots in Duluth. We're in the the St. Louis County Historical Society, and my great aunt, I think, worked with copper. And so I try to incorporate copper whenever I can, and I always think about my family lineage when I'm doing that. And then the other thing, I mentioned it to someone earlier, is that when I was at the Women's Art Institute, one of the things they told us is that you want people to be looking at your art, at a distance and appreciating it. And then when they step closer, there's this reward, that they see something more. And I think I kind of naturally do that. I don't think about that. But this piece, what's in this one, don't do this when I'm not here. But what's in here, it's a hunk of glass. And so I did a artist residency down in Red Wing, and there was a glass maker there, and they had a whole bunch of junk glass. And so I asked if I could have that. And this piece is called Reveal, and what I have on the label, naming a feeling experienced in the body is a very important skill. And so I try to give clues to people what I'm thinking about when I'm doing a piece, a sculpture. And so it's that idea that we have these rich information in our body about our feelings, our thoughts, and that when we look inside, it's important to look inside so that we can identify that and then make decisions based on that. So that's kind of what that piece is about. The other one is the one on the other pedestal down there. It's called Waiting. And that one is a double, let's see, you take watercolor paper, paint both sides, cut it in strips, and then weave it 3 layers. Very complicated, very fun. And there's a piece of also glass that's hanging in there, just balancing. And that one's called Waiting, and what I have on there is the body remembers all that happens to it. So you can just, I try to put things like that so you can think about that as you're looking at what might that mean for you, looking at that. Yeah, and I think these two paper ones, when you look inside, they're different colors. Those are crazy. They're really hard, yeah. Yeah, they're really hard. They're fun. They're a lot of fun. What else? Anything else? I gotta say, you guys are the best at asking questions too, like being interested and wondering about things. So thank you. Thank you so much for coming out. Don't forget to make a comment in the comment book if you'd be so kind to do that. And I'd love to see you on October 3rd when I do a little deeper dive. We'll have a slideshow, PowerPoint with pictures of different things, talking, more about the history of basketry, how my life parallels the history of basketry, how it's in the medical field, working with an apprentice mentor and making that basket, the Swedish basket. I do have a recording if anybody wants to ask me later. When I was traveling in France, I ran across a Swedish spoon carver, and I pronounced the name of the basket, and she went, I said, can I record you? I said, I'm going to practice how to say it, so I'll tell you how I say it. Knutkorg. That's not right. So I have a recording and it's said correctly, so I can play it for anybody else. Say it again?
Knutkorg.
That's it.
Because the G is, like, it's Bjorn Body, not Bjorn Borg. It's Bjorn Body. Kori is basket. So it's weird with the G,
Yeah.
like Ingmar Battyman, not Ingmar Bergman. It's Batty.
Yeah, you say it, that's right how you say it.
What was that, what was that again?
Here,
Batty.
Yeah, do your
Kori. Knut Kori. Kori. So Knut means a knot. It's also a man's name, but Knut. And then Kori, K-O-R-G.
But it's like a E-Y.
I know, it's weird. So like mountain is Batty. Batty, Body.
Yeah. So now you've had your Swedish lesson. I understand the Norwegians say it differently.
Batty.
Yes. Yes, because I had a Norwegian tell me the name and I said, that's not how the Swedish.
No.
I'm not going to say it the Norwegian way now that I know I'm primarily Swedish.